Many times women underestimate the importance of the father wound and how it translates into their romantic relationships. It's really easy to isolate your relationship with your father and say, this is the reason that I'm attracted to these kinds of toxic people, whatever it is. But when you kind of zoom out on that and you see the kind of programming that he's been conditioned with, it's really easy to see now, and it all becomes so clear as to why there is so much dysfunction in our relationships. I think it's actually very incredibly rare to come across a family with a healthy relationship dynamic. Why is it that so many of our relationships are dysfunctional, toxic, unhealthy? And the sooner that you can recognize the patterns that everybody is playing out, the faster you can remove yourself from that particular game that group of people are playing, and then join the group of people who are aware of that game playing out and wanting to create something new. Because there is a huge wave of people who are waking up to that conditioning and wanting no part in it. Why do you think there's such a huge movement of healers in the world today? It's because people are over it, people are sick of it, people are burnt out, and we are recognizing that the relationship dynamics we're playing out are currently inconsistent with the level of peace we want to have inside and outside. Why are we so addicted to suffering and hurting each other? What many don't realize is that when you hurt another, you hurt yourself. The shift that needs to occur is not so much forcing change onto people who are addicted in the loop of suffering. It's more about collecting that group of people who are aware of their patterns and wanting to move through it, reconditioning their mind, building themselves up with healthy qualities that are consistent with healthy relationships, and creating a kind of life or lifestyle that breeds happiness, positivity, love, unconditional love, true peace, true connection. When you become a living demonstration of that kind of abundance, people look to you as a way shower. People addicted in that suffering will then look to you and be like, she has something that I want. What did she do and how can I have that? I want to leave these old ways behind. That's when we start getting more people to shift out of scarcity and suffering, in which we're attacking people, playing that victim mindset, and we move over to the other side where we are a conductor of healthy relationships. My name is Kirsty and welcome to another episode of Good Girls in Remission. If you are new here, this is a podcast series where we come together as women to collectively decondition ourselves from good girl conditioning and basically create the life of our dreams. Most of us are aware by now that we're living in a system that doesn't necessarily benefit us as women. It's not designed for our success, and it's actually impossible for us to thrive in our femininity in this very masculinized structure. However, that being said, you still have equal access and opportunity to universal resources. Just because the system might be against you, it doesn't mean the universe is. You still have equal opportunity to success. That's the resources that I am wanting to impart onto you in this episode. By the end of this episode, I want you to walk away with the ability to spot good men, as well as develop your own inequalities that are conducive to relationships with good men. Because the thing is, when you put your foot down and you say, I deserve something better, I am done with this struggle, that's the instance that you've got to leave behind your fears, your insecurities, your blockages, your limiting beliefs, all around your love ability. When you are brought up in an environment with an unhealthy relationship of masculine energy, you become prone to a lot of unconscious programming that's actually really difficult to spot, and it becomes revealed to you in layers. It can't happen all at once because you would just go into overwhelm. It'd be too much. But one thing that I've been particularly focusing on with my one-on-one girls at the moment is how are you draining your own life force? And one of the biggest ways that we can spot this is by looking at those fears and insecurities that block us from stepping into our own lovability. Healing happens in layers, and this is a really fantastic opportunity for you to identify the areas in which you were previously playing it small, and now ways that you can step into your potential and finally claim the relationships and the life of your dreams that you've always wanted. The very first topic I want to talk about in this episode is ways in which the unconscious programming specifically translates into your romantic relationships. This way you can pick it up when it happens and correct yourself in the moment. The most important thing you need to take stock of is your patterns and responses to the conditioning or in response to the unhealthy treatment. And this is where we start to see a lot of people pleasers born. in response to unhealthy treatment, because women are intimidated by the domination of men, being that they are bigger, they are stronger, they do have louder voices, they are also more likely to act on emotions rather than logic. We become people pleasers as a strategy of prevention. Damage control is not a very good strong point for women, because by the time it gets to that point, the damage is usually irreconcilable, because men, in extreme cases at least, can become quite violent. So our strategy as women is prevention. We might do this quite literally and take jujitsu, or we might do this unconsciously by becoming people pleasers. Rather than stand up and speak out against mistreatment, we'll just keep it bottled up. We'll just tolerate it. We'll just say yes. We'll just say it's fine. And then you end up becoming completely despondent. And then you end up passing those patterns down onto your children. And the cycle just completely continues. What we're learning as women is ways that we can use our voice and speak up. But I get to a point where I'm like, is it our job as women to re-educate men? In my opinion, I don't think so. I think the best way that we can re-educate men is by just becoming a demonstration of a woman who is basically unattainable to them. When you are glowing and radiating in your feminine energy, standing in your light, healing your patterns and creating the life of your dreams, and a man comes into the picture who has nothing but entitlement towards you, realizes that he cannot get to you, he's going to have to either A, settle for someone in his league and will just tolerate for the rest of his life, or he's going to have to develop the qualities that become a match to you. That, to me, is the best way that we can inspire growth. We can become way showers by standing in our own light. When you're in that frame of mind and you're just standing in your own light, in your own truth, and you're so committed to your own journey of maybe becoming a healer yourself, it becomes irrelevant whether people can meet you on your level or not, because you just accept them as they are. It doesn't mean you need to be best friends, does not mean you need to have a relationship with them in any way, shape, or form, but it just means you can accept people at face value. That's just who you are. It's not my job to change you, re-educate you, show you a different way. I'm just standing in my truth, in who I am, and if that triggers you, that's on you. Or you can step up, build the qualities that are a match to me, and you can also similarly cultivate the same life for yourself. I actually have a bit of a funny story. A couple of months ago, I parked in the beach council car park, and some guy just started yelling at the top of his lungs. This was unusual, by the way. This doesn't usually happen. Some guy just started going off about how he got a parking ticket. And it kind of put some things into perspective for me. A woman would just never do that unless she was maybe a bit of a lunatic. Women just don't yell at the top of their lungs about how, woe is me, oh my God, I just got a fucking parking ticket. The energy behind it was like, oh my God, I'm in so much suffering and now I have to pay for this bloody parking ticket. And then I thought to myself, I'm supposed to feel sorry for you? Honey, I don't. If you don't acknowledge and abide by the parking rules that are clearly stated on the signs, you're going to get a fine. It's simple math. You yelling about it at the top of your lungs for everyone in the neighborhood to hear about it is having a fucking hissy fit when you knew the rules. So that's been one of my recent superpowers, is just disengaging from the stories of other people's suffering. By the way, I'm not talking about communities unfairly victimized by a war. I'm talking about men who choose to believe in their own victim story and reel people into their own suffering. I am all for men and women reaching for help, get coaching, get therapy, get people in, ask for help, ask for assistance, but do not reel people into your own suffering in which you are guilt tripping, creating a sob story, because just as I said at the beginning of this episode, you have equal access to universal resources as everyone else around you. No one is more of a victim than you, and no one else has more special treatment than you. It's equal access. If you want to get super serious about cultivating healthy relationships in your life, you have to be completely savage with your standards. You also have to uphold those standards in your personal life with you, your relationship with yourself, not just other people. If you keep putting yourself in situations in which you're participating in other people's stories of suffering, you will perpetuate your own suffering. If you keep tolerating sob stories from men of how the government makes it so hard for them to make money nowadays, about the divorce rates and how women will just take, I choose to not participate in those conversations because I know from the bottom of my heart that it's not true. Anyone losing their family in a war in which they did not ask to participate in is a real victim. Any man who makes excuses for not being able to treat his wife with respect, for not being able to emotionally regulate, for not respecting other people's boundaries are not victims, they are narcissists. And if you develop people pleasing as a coping response to these kinds of toxic behaviors from men, you will keep attracting these same kinds of toxic men. People pleasing looks like you not speaking up or honoring your needs in the moment because you're afraid of how you're going to be received. What you need to do is detach from the outcome by deep breathing, regulating your nervous system, and becoming okay with however the outcome presents itself. Given you are in an environment in which you are physically safe and which it's not going to be escalated into physical violence, ultimately, if you can, detach from the outcome. One thing that I would love for all women to do is completely remove themselves from relationships in which their nervous systems are dysregulated. That is going to be one of the keys to your success. If you can find a way to regulate your nervous system and remove the coping mechanisms that you keep employing that keep you stuck in those situations, you will find that your access to creativity and your intuition gets stronger, and you'll find more guidance to where you really need to go in life. Because a big, strong feminine energy trait that we talk about in your light feminine energy is intuition and creativity. And more often than not, what it takes to really access those qualities is a release of all the things that are not serving you. How do we make sure that you are really removing yourself from this limiting conditioning and making yourself available to good men, high vibrational men who really know how to honor the feminine? Your biggest giveaway is going to be the way that you feel in response to their actions and behaviors. I can say the most obvious things: consistency, he's warm, he's approachable, he's respectful, he responds in a timely manner, he's getting to know you. I can say all those things, but you know what? The biggest giveaway is going to be you. You are your biggest resource, especially your emotional guidance system. But again, how do we feel like we've come across a good man versus when we're maybe having a response from our triggers or we're self-sabotaging? The difference is, are you expanding or are you shrinking? Recently, I was having a chat with a girl and she was saying, I'm in a relationship with this man. He's a really good guy, especially considering most of my relationships have been incredibly toxic. He's a breath of fresh air in my life. However, he doesn't excite me. And obviously, as we were chatting, I asked her, do you think this is just a new normal for you and that your body's just finding this a bit of a shock because you're so used to the drama? And she's like, yeah, definitely. Like, I know that's a part of it, but at the same time, I just don't feel completely lit up by him, but he's not a bad guy. And my question is, why do you feel like you can't have both? So if you feel like you're dating someone who is nice and who is maybe doing all the things that he needs to be doing, is that not just the bare minimum? Is that just not the basic standard of what you can expect from a man? Just because he is exhibiting these green flag behaviors doesn't mean that he's the man for you. You can have it both ways, in which he is a good man ticking off those green boxes, and you can be emotionally, physically lit up by him. Just because you've had experiences in which you're used to drama, toxic conflict, doesn't mean that you need to settle for someone who doesn't bring any excitement in your life at all. Because toxicity isn't excitement, it's always draining. It's almost like in both situations here, you're shrinking yourself. You've got the toxic relationship in which the conflict is really draining you and making you shrink. But then there's also the option of you dating a good guy who doesn't excite you. That again is asking you to manage your expectations of what you can experience in a relationship. But then you can take it a step further and expand your consciousness and say, what if it's possible for both? What if it's possible that I can meet a good guy who lights me up? That's where the standards need to be set at from now onwards. Basic green flag behavior is the bare minimum entry level position, and it does not mean that you have to give him a relationship. It does not mean that you have to give him 110% of you just yet. You are allowed to pick someone who is a good fit for you, because otherwise you're just falling straight back into that good girl conditioning of, oh, but he's such a great guy, I feel bad that he just doesn't feel like the right fit for me. When I look at the development and rise of feminism, we have that strong move towards independence, which I am 110% here for. But the only thing that I feel like that doesn't translate very well is this concept of ownership. A patriarchal man owns women from a place of control and dominance and entitlement. I own you, therefore you need to do these things for me. You have no place to say anything against me. You have no right to raise your voice. You have no right to your own independence. That is control. That is a stripping of your identity and your womanhood. When you get into a relationship with a healthy man, you will want to feel fully 100% claimed by him. If he is not claiming you, that is a sign of a man who is just not committed to you. You've got to find that in-between sweet spot in which he's wanting to claim you, wanting to own you, but not wanting to control you, dominate you, aggressively push you into doing things that aren't for you because he financially provides for you or just because you have a relationship status with him. But instead, it's one that comes from a position of being proud. This is my woman. She is a reflection of me. She's an extension of me. We are a team. We are a unit. I am proud of her. She is mine. I claim her. Everyone else back off. She is my prize. I want her. And that feels really nice to be completely owned and claimed by a man in that way. What I find with men who come from a position of entitlement is that it never feels good. You always feel controlled and there's always demonstrations of low effort behavior. But men who make the effort to claim you as the prize he has won are always demonstrating and exhibiting much more consistency. They're much more dedicated to you in the long run because men don't take their prize easily. They know that when they commit, they're in it for the long run. And that doesn't have to look like you giving up your identity, your financial independence, your career, whatever you want, because he will honor your decisions. If you don't want to have kids, you will find a man who fully claims that aspect about you. If you want a career or if you don't want a career, you want to be a stay-at-home mom, wife, whatever it is, he will fully claim those things about you. You've got to find a way to accept yourself and the things that you want. And are your desires really coming from a place of authenticity, or are they coming from a coping mechanism? Are you wanting the things that you're wanting because they're going to light you up and that just feels like the natural expression of your soul? Or is it coming from a place of people pleasing? I can't have what I really want because it's asking too much, because it's going to upset someone, because I'm going to feel like a burden, because I don't want to be paid for and then be controlled. All of that is people pleasing. That is the conditioning, the unconscious conditioning that comes usually from the father wound. And it's possible to break that and be in demonstration for what is possible for other women. Something I love to remind my one-on-one girls is that the mind can only receive what it believes. Your ability to expand your container to hold negative emotions is going to be the key to your growth. People think that growth is all about light love, and yeah, that can be a part of it, but essentially it's about doing the dirty work. That dirty work is taking accountability for the unhealthy relationship patterns and coping mechanisms that you've employed to keep yourself safe. When you break through them, that's when you start hitting next level growth. And I'm telling you, good men are commonplace. They are easy to find. When you become that version of you who is a match to them, they are just everywhere. Literally just the other day, I'm walking up a street and I see a couple about my age. The man's opening the car door for her. I see that stuff everywhere I go now. It's my predominant experience in what I see. I'm getting messages from you girls as well saying that you're meeting better men, you're getting better treatment, you're getting spoiled. It is possible for you to get to a level of reality in which that stuff is just completely normal. Being spoiled is just a normal experience for a woman, as it should be. And if a man wants to make fun of you for that, or he doesn't want to participate, okay, someone else will. There's just no reason to humble yourself downwards. We only want situations in which our expectations are blown out of the water. The more you clear all that gunk that's telling you to play it small, people please, not expect too much, that's when you fine-tune your energy to become a match to high vibrational men. But you've just got to be willing to do the inner work, the dirty work, and then you become an instant match to it. If you need help with fine-tuning that on a deeper level, my one-to-one sessions are open. You can find the link for that in the description below. Also, if you need a free peer support group in which you can actually interact with other women, I've created a group of women to come together, glow and grow, and it's growing every single week. So who knows, you might meet your new best friend in there. Again, link is below. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next week. Bye.